Eat your greens, they're healthy. A phrase we've all heard at one point or another in our life, and when looking at it from a nutritional perspective, it sure holds merit. Not only are vegetables, fruits, and nuts filled to the brim with a lot of the vitamins we need to consume on a daily basis, they're also our only source of fibers, which are necessary for strong gut health and a flourishing microbiome, as well as an important source of carbohydrates, which give us the energy to get through another hard day in those trying times. And unlike meat stuff, plant-based food does contain only a minimal amount of cholesterol and saturated fatty acids, which are commonly associated with heart diseases and clogged arteries if eaten in excess. So we usually try to limit our consumption of meat to our daily needs of proteins and some minor vitamins, and try to fit as many plant stuff into our diet as possible. But did you know that not even half a millennia ago, the general medical opinion on the appropriate proportions between plant and meat consumption was completely flipped? Back in your olden days, our vastly different understanding of the world and our bodies created a system of beliefs and approaches to a healthy diet, completely alien to the modern human. How have people thought about food and nutrition back then? How are their opinions different? Are there any similarities to our modern understanding of a healthy lifestyle? Let's dive deep into the thrilling world of culinary health practices during the Renaissance era. Welcome back to another episode of History with...
Hi, I'm Pebbles.
Alright, Pebbles. Back to the citation station with you. Chef Uzi, what a wonderful summer night to enjoy the fruits of your culinary expertise to a fine glass of wine. What is it today that you serve me? Those fragrant aromas leaking from the food dome. They're making my head spin. I cannot wait to dig in. But Chef Uzi, is this truthfully a beef cabbage stir-fry? How dare you? Are you trying to poison me? How would my delicate stomach be able to digest meat as crude as ground beef? Not to mention that beef is cold and moist in temperament. I am a student and hence predisposed to melancholy. If I eat this, I might fall ill to various cancers, or even leprosy. Not to mention the boldness necessary to serve me cabbage this way. It's only fried. Did you not know that you have to boil it multiple times and season it well in order of balancing out its humoral properties? And are those pieces of carrots? In the name of the Lord Uzi! It's the midst of the summer! Where's your brain this lovely evening? Due to their warming properties, carrots are best to be eaten in the cold seasons. I cannot eat this. I'm sorry. You have to discard this trash. Okay, to the modern listener, this must have been plenty confusing. You might be asking yourself, what just happened? What kind of critique is that? Why is there no commentary to the protein and vitamin profile? And why is their stomach too weak to digest beef? And what the fluff is a cold and moist temperament? And all those questions are more than valid. To understand why this dish would have been medically unacceptable to a student during the early Renaissance era, we must first understand how European people thought our bodies worked back then. During the early modern period, doctors still followed the ancient Greek doctrine of humorism. Not humor in the sense of comedy. Humorism is a set of medical teachings named after humor, the Latin word for moisture. According to humorism, there were 4 different types of moistures, or humors, in the body, which constantly interacted with each other. Those humors were blood, phlegm, yellow bile, which was also known as choler, and black bile, which had the charming byname of melancholy. Associated with each of the humors was also metaphorical temperature and a level of moistness. A proper balance within would be what determines a person's temperament, also called complexion, and along with it, their mental and physical health. The art of balancing our humors in a healthy manner was called dietetics. The key to understanding how this relates back to dietary advice lies in understanding 3 major points. First, In the humorism of the early modern period, it was believed that every living thing, and hence all food, had a humoral complexion of itself, which had to be taken into account when choosing what to eat. The central goal was to correct one's complexion into an idealized state of healthiness. Second, aside from the teachings of humorism, one's ability to digest food and absorb nourishment from it, as well as the amount of nourishment needed, played a major role in health as well. Last but not least, third, every human had an individual temperament they would default to unless they actively balanced their humors with a proper choice of ingredients. Hence, all advice on what to eat had to be more or less individualized. Since most people couldn't afford personally tailored dietary advice, health guide authors and food thinkers usually assigned people to different groups given by age, profession, and geographical location. The season also played into which choices to make, as the weather influenced the complexions as well. With those three underlying ideas of a healthy diet, we can now start to deconstruct my negative critique on Chef Uzi's beef cabbage stir-fry from before. Chef Uzi used the recipe from a saucy kitchen, with a solid 4 grams of fibers per serving, as well as 17 grams of proteins. This dish would be regarded as a decent one in modern times. Unless you're allergic or have any other dietary restrictions, there would be no reason to deny eating this dish, at least not from a health perspective. Anyways, Uzi cooked this meal specifically for me, and whilst role-playing as a 16th century student, I have rejected it in the rudest way possible. So what about the Renaissance perspective on this dish? The main ingredients the recipe called for were the defining ground beef and cabbage. Let's start with the beef. In the Europe of the 16th century, it was thought that consumption of meat helped the body produce blood, the most important humor to consume in order of having a proper diet. Meat was also universally regarded as the most nourishing food, due to the human body being literally made of it. In line with this train of thought, it was believed that pork meat was by far the best meat, since it's one of the animals who are regarded closest to humans. A stark contrast from today's view of pork, where it should be avoided because of its high values in cholesterol and saturated fat. Back then, the only problem with pork meat was that it was regarded as hard to digest. That's why pork meat was supposed to be avoided by people who are physically inactive, like students and scholars. Workers, soldiers, and other physically hardworking people could eat it without concern though, because their strong bodies were equipped to handle cruder foodstuff. A meat more fit for the consumption by a weak, sedentary, spoiled brat student stomach like mine would have been chicken meat, since it was easier to digest and less nourishing. Latter point being important in keeping me from becoming gluttonous in my lifestyle. Conversely, people who were heavily invested in manual labor were ill-advised to eat poultry, since its delicacy would corrupt the poor stomachs which were exclusively thought to be adapted to stronger food. As for beef, it had properties similar to pork meat, except it thickened the blood to unhealthy levels. It was also thought to be cold and moist, so students who were thought to be melancholic in nature, i.e. cold and dry, shouldn't eat it. Sure, the moistness would balance out the dryness, but it just imbalanced the coldness even further. Like beef, cabbage was considered offensively moist and cold as well, making this dish even worse for my personal balance. It is to be mentioned that it was possible to cut down on the imbalance of the humoral misalignments of cabbage through various cooking methods. However, due to their supposed lack of nourishment, vegetables were not considered proper food during this part of the Renaissance era, and rather thought of as a way to correct the complexion of a dish into more favorable temperament. To add cabbage to beef dish would defeat the whole dietetic purpose of eating vegetables in the first place. So in conclusion, whilst I, as a 21st century person, would definitely eat this dish with my modern understanding of food, from a 16th century perspective, I probably should have abstained from it. So then, what should Chef Uzi have cooked for me instead? How could they ever redeem themselves? When will I finally answer the questions from the intro of the video? And what else is there to the food in the modern early period? What did people think about bread, fruits, cheese, milk, and liquors. Whilst I could talk on and on about this topic, this video is already too long for my taste, which is why I'll make it a 3-part series. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell so that you won't miss episode 2 of this thrilling exploration of Renaissance culinary dietetics. If you can't wait, check out the link to my Patreon page in the description, where I upload every new video a week earlier. Alternatively, you could also read Diet and Health in Early Modern England and Italy, a comparative study of the theoretical and practical understandings of humoral principles by Giovanni Pozzetti, and Food and Health in Early Modern Europe, Diet, Medicine and Society by David Gentlecore, which are the main works of literature I am basing this series on. I highly recommend those works as they're both a really good read. This being said, see you on the next one.